Welcome to another episode of Behind the Business presented by Gore Mutual. I'm your host, Ian McLean, President and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. This podcast is recorded on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. Each week I sit down for candid conversations where we go beyond the boardroom and behind the business to uncover the real stories of Waterloo Region's business community. Today on the Behind the Business podcast, we're joined by Kevin Litwiller, strategic partner with Schooley Mitchell, the largest independent cost reduction consulting firm in North America. Kevin brings decades of experience as a senior leader, entrepreneur, and investor with a deep understanding of what it really takes to run and grow a business. In his work, Kevin helps organizations uncover hidden inefficiencies in essential business services with a focus on delivering objective, data-driven insights that support stronger margins and better long-term decision-making. Beyond his advisory work, Kevin is also actively engaged in the Waterloo Region business community, including his role as chair of Kitchener-Waterloo Business Connections and his involvement in peer-driven entrepreneurial circles and the Center for Family Business. In today's conversation, we explore Kevin's entrepreneurial journey, what he's learned from decades of building and advising businesses, and how leaders can think differently about cost, growth, and resilience in today's economy. So join me in this episode as we go behind the business with Kevin Litwiller. Well, we're excited to have you here today, Kevin. Thanks for spending some time with us.
I'm excited too, and thank you for the opportunity, Ian.
You've had a long career as a senior leader, an investor, and a business owner, in sometimes together, sometimes separately. What originally pulled you into entrepreneurship and now in that advisory work that you do?
So I grew up in a local family business that was around in this town for 90 years, Waterloo Printing Company. Yeah. So I always like to tell people my first boss in life was the guy that woke me up in the morning.
Yeah.
And my dad didn't always own that business. He actually worked there and worked his way up, and then he became the owner through a series of events. There was succession planning, and my dad rolled the dice and bought the company with my mom. And I guess when I look at his passion for building a business, that's where my foundation comes from.
Mm-hmm. Now, you built businesses and advised other business owners on their business, so you're kind of giving your expertise in that. At what point did you start to see that cost management and efficiency, like operational efficiency, as a real differentiator and a gap in the marketplace? Because I think everyone looks at revenue and top line and the idea. When you look at the cost management side of things, how did you lead that work, right? And how did you gravitate that was really the silver bullet for successful businesses?
Well, I think, like I said, growing up in a family business, cost containment was something that we talked about at the dinner table.
Yeah.
So it was kind of ingrained in my blood. And then once I left my family business and decided to spread my wings and go and be an entrepreneur, that really is a part of every kind of business you're involved in. And I've been involved mostly in my life in startup and quasi-startup environments, where the order of the day is, of course, to drive revenue, but you always have to keep a look at close eye on the bottom line, because you need to stay profitable. So that's kind of ingrained in me.
So I know you're involved in the Center for Family Business. Were you involved in that through the family business at Waterloo Printing and then continue on as you got into business? Or did you come to them after, or did you get more connected with them when you're starting your own business?
Yeah, I got connected with them when I started my own company. Right. I was always aware of it. And it made sense now because now I am also the owner of a family business that my wife is involved in, and I have 2 daughters.
Yeah.
And so I was actually talking to my insurance provider, and they suggested, hey, you might want to look at the Center for Family Business as well. So that's something that I'm really excited to be involved.
And we have a great partnership with them, and we try and support the work they do because that's not our area of expertise, but there's a lot of crossover of the membership of the Center for Family, but it's a very unique set of things that family-owned businesses in particular, especially multi-generational, so they do some great work. Listen, what's a leadership lesson you've learned through your advisory work that you wish for entrepreneurs or business executives, for lack of a better term, understood earlier in their life? Like, I mean, we talked about cost containment. And I think that's one is, it can't all be about revenue. It's going to be managing costs. But what is the leadership lesson you would impart on folks?
I think the most important thing you can do in business is lead with passion and heart.
Yeah.
And if you are passionate about what you're doing and you put your heart and soul into it and you keep a close eye on the bottom line because that's important, then you're always going to be successful.
Mm-hmm. So when you're, again, the business that you started, many businesses assume that cost management is just it's a necessary function. Like they don't actually kind of get it's the difference between a good year and a bad year. It certainly is one of those things that can help you through the rough patches, because every business has them. If you think about it in that context, many businesses would leave literally money on the table, because they're not intentionally looking about how to manage costs down to maximize the bottom line, like the net, your final net number of how your business is doing. Where do they most knowing, like where would a business most obviously leave money on the table? Like what aspect of their costs would be the thing that they sort of go like, I can't believe that I didn't think about that. What's an example of that?
Well, I think the first thing I would say to that, Ian, is that it's not the obvious things that have a negative effect on businesses. Yeah. It's what we call the death by 1,000 cuts. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times it's all the little things that add up over time and that are not always as visible at like a senior CFO or controller level. And that's where we sort of play with Schooley Mitchell, is we help keep an eye on those death by 1,000 cuts costs that can really over time affect a business in a negative way.
And I guess this is something that most, especially small business owners, but I think everyone is aware of, is margins continue to get tighter and tighter. Doesn't matter what business you're in.
No, that's true.
Food, think groceries and different things. Tight margins everywhere. Tight margins for the supplier, tight margins for the grocery store. You look at all of the input costs of everything in manufacturing, tight margins. How should leaders be thinking differently about cost containment versus investment in growth? Because you got to do both. I think that's part of it. Is sure. What's the balance you strike between investing for growth and cost containment to sustain it?
I spend a lot of time talking to leaders and owners about found money, and found money as a tool to fund investment and growth. As an example, if you are able to find, say, a couple $100,000 in the operations of the business that you didn't know was there before, then that money becomes extremely valuable to fund your growth, because you can take that money and reinvest it in sales, software, infrastructure, etc.
Now you built your career here. I mean, you talked about the family-owned business. You grew up here. Your family had a very successful business. From your perspective, as you look, and you've got clients beyond Waterloo Region now, what makes the Waterloo Region ecosystem, like the business environment, unique? From other places that your clients do business? Like what makes Waterloo Region different?
Well, I think leadership is a big part of it. When I take a look at the history of the region of Waterloo, one of the things that astounds me is how innovative we've been able to be and responsive we've been able to be, from transitioning from what used to be a very heavy manufacturing ecosystem to innovation, technology, and beyond. And, we've been able to, as a community, switch gears and reinvent ourselves continuously over that time. And I think that comes down to good leadership and a good ecosystem, things like the Chamber, things like the Center for Family Business, and people being interconnected and seeing trends happening as they come, and then being able to adjust to that.
The Behind the Business podcast is made possible through the support of our title sponsor, Gore Mutual. Proudly Canadian, Gore Mutual has stayed true to one purpose for more than 185 years, insurance that does good. It's the reason they exist. They believe that when we focus on being good, doing good, and spreading good, we all thrive together. We're grateful for their continued commitment to our local communities and the positive impact they make every day. For more information, visit goremutual.ca. So, one of the things, it's interesting. We're in a global business environment now. So, you can be, on a Zoom call, halfway around the world in Dubai or, Hong Kong or Australia, any time of the day or night. So we're not, the physical limitations of business to some extent are gone. But how important has it been embedded here in a community of peers and leaders? How has that contributed to your success, and in both your family-owned business and now your personal business? Like being around a group of people that you kind of and you sort of getting at that as like some people, I think, may drive by the fact that it is important to be around a group environment where you can get the benefit that's more than the two-dimensional you get at a TV screen.
That's right. Well, obviously COVID changed everything, and we're now used to doing a certain amount of our business through virtual connections. However, I just watched it recently, a documentary by Robert Putnam called Join or Die. And he talks about the importance of the social fabric and joining organizations and how that has changed over the years. And unfortunately, it's declined. But I do see it seems to be ramping back up again. And in my particular case, I really believe in that personal connection, which is why I've tried to get involved in organizations where we go out, we go belly to belly, as they say, and meet and talk to people. And I just don't think you're ever going to get that type of personal connection that you can get through being involved in those organizations and actually diving in through a screen.
Now, we've talked a little bit at the outset. You're deeply involved across several organizations. Center for Family Business was one that we mentioned. And peer groups in your business area, and obviously that's all in addition to running your own business, right? You got your own clients, you run your business, but you're volunteering, mentoring, and providing leadership in other organizations. How do you personally decide? Because there's for many of us, it's not a question of if you're going to contribute or volunteer some time. It's how do you winnow it down? Because there's lots of people that want you to do those things. How did you kind of decide where to invest your time when it comes to either those volunteer experiences or that community involvement?
That's a great question because, I'm a solopreneur, and we get asked, sometimes 2-3 times a week to be involved in different things, which is an honor. However, you do have to keep a close eye on your time as well. So what I try to do is I look at the opportunities based on reciprocity. So it's, if I get involved in this and I put my time into it, what can I give to that organization and what is likely to come back out of it? It's not always monetary. It's relationships, it's growth as a human being, and all those different things. So I try to take all those things into consideration when I'm trying to decide where to spend my time.
Yeah. Well, and time is probably the most valuable commodity that you have, because that's what you're selling, your expertise and your time. But even for your clients, is time is the one thing that's finite, and but giving back and getting out in the community is really important. Whether it's as you do with your business connections work that you're doing, whether it's the Center for Family Business or whether it's peer help groups, important to give back. But managing which ones are going to be where you're going to be most effective is a unique. We all have to make that value judgment. Sure. What advice would you give to leaders who want to build a network that's not just bigger? Because there's lots of people who have LinkedIn. If you say yes to everyone, I'm sure you have a lot of names, but do you know any of them? So the question of having a network that's not just bigger, but genuinely valuable. How have you gone about trying to make sure that you've got that group or that network, something that's valuable to you?
Yeah, and I think again, you want to look at it from a holistic perspective. And my philosophy, I guess, is follow your instincts and look for opportunities where you can really get involved and have an impact, and where you can also learn from others. That's a big part of it.
Okay, and this podcast is always it's about your business and the way you interact with your own business and community leaders, but it's also about leadership and leadership styles. And I always just ask this same series of questions because it's always interesting to see how people kind of what angle they take on the question, because there's no wrong answers here. But if you could go back and say, I know you're young, but a much younger version of yourself, what would you tell yourself?
I would say follow your passion, number one. That's the most important thing, because if you follow your passion and you do things that you really believe in and that you're passionate about, it comes through in everything that you do. And the other thing is ignore naysayers. There's always going to be people who say, well, you can't do this, or give you 1,000 reasons why it can't be done. I live by the rule of why can't it be done?
Yeah. Well, it's good advice, because if you said no, or you abandoned ship the first time you hit a hurdle, nothing would ever get done in this world. Who or what has inspired you along the way in your younger career, but now as you're older as well?
I guess there's been many, and it's hard to nail down one or two, but I think that I'm inspired by people that take action, that don't wait around for things to happen. People that make things happen. That's what inspires me.
Those geared towards action, I couldn't agree more. If you weren't, and so you've done a variety of things. I always ask this question, and for those that I know, I say, geez, you've already done a variety of things. But if you weren't in your current career, and I don't want you to default to what you did in the family business. So if you had to pick something completely new and you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you think you would be doing instead, and why?
Well, in 1985, I did a Coca-Cola commercial, so at one time in my life, I thought I was going to be an actor.
Yeah.
But, showbiz is tough. So, I really do love business building and entrepreneurialism, and I don't think that I would do anything really different. I'm a builder by nature.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those people who likes to look at things and say, okay, what building blocks do we need to make things happen? So I'm pretty passionate about that.
Is that hands-on too? Like, are you, like woodworking, that sort of whatever?
No, I'm not a woodworking guy.
But hands-on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I talk about building, I mean, when you look at an organization, especially if the order of the day is to drive sales and watch the bottom line, then I like to look at it from the perspective of what are the building blocks that are there now, and what building blocks can you bring in order to add more structure and accelerate the process.
Okay. Everyone needs a takeaway or some time away from work and from thinking about work. Most people do that. It's interesting. They do lots of things, but many people either read books, listen to podcasts, watch shows. What are the things that you do to kind of keep your mind active and be thinking about what's next, but is not purely about business?
Yeah, so I like Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
I read his book, Start With Why. That's been very inspirational for me in my life, and I like listening to him. He has great advice, and he asks great questions. He makes you think. He's very provocative, and I believe that start with why is a really, really important question to ask yourself, especially if you're going into any kind of business. So even in my downtime, I tend to gravitate towards things like that. because it helps me relax, but it also helps me to sort of reset and refocus on what I'm doing.
That's good. Okay, you're from this part of the world, and it doesn't mean that you don't like lots of business, but do you have one favorite local business, whether it's coffee shop, restaurant, services? What's your favorite place in Waterloo Region these days?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say I like them all.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested and passionate about what's happening with Eclipse Automation, Steve Mai's company.
Yeah.
For many reasons, one of which is a little bit selfish. My daughter just finished her first co-op term there. And looking at that from a broader perspective, they're a great company. They're into healthcare, robotics, automation. It's amazing. But they also are very active in co-ops and helping our local students and graduates build careers and get started, which is really important, especially given the unemployment rates for youth right now. So I'm really interested in.
Well, Steve was on a radio show a number of times during COVID because what a story of them pivoting and doing the masks for during COVID, and he was such an amazing business there. So I like that. It's a good choice. I wouldn't have picked. People usually go for default for the restaurant or thing. You go for a advanced manufacturing facility. I love it. Where's the best way? If someone wants to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing and talk more, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, of course, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm active on there, but just email kevin.litwiller@schooleymitchell.com.
And how do you spell Schooley Mitchell?
Oh, SCHOOLEYMITCHELL.com.
Okay, now we got that. Okay, that's awesome. Listen, time is, again, for most business people, the most valuable commodity, so we really appreciate you spending some of your valuable time with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's great. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Behind the Business, proudly presented by Gore Mutual, insurance that does good. New episodes drop every Thursday, so be sure to tune in next week. You can also visit greaterkwchamber.com to catch up on past episodes anytime. We'll see you next time as we continue to go Behind the Business.